First, let me just say and clear up a few things before we start. I am not a Pistons fan. In fact, I'm actually a Hornets fan. And I also don't have any beef with Carmelo Anthony. I actually kind of like Carmelo Anthony. I could already see some hate comments or any dislikes on this video questioning my intelligence or sanity. Remember, the goal of each and every team is to win a championship for a given season. When selecting a player in a draft, a number of factors need to be considered. What position or positions do we need the most help at? Who is the best player available? And what is the talent drop off behind said player? What character concerns exist for a given player that could affect team chemistry? Those are not the only questions to be asked, but certainly the biggest ones. Before we answer those questions for the 2003 NBA draft, we need to look at the state of the Detroit Pistons heading into this draft. The previous year, the Pistons had won 50 games and went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals. They only had the number 2 pick in the draft from the previous trade they had made involving Otis Thorpe. Teams that are coming off a trip to the conference finals almost never have a draft pick that high. The team had a young core that played great as a team and relied heavily on their defense. As we all know, Chauncey Billups was the starting point guard. After bouncing around the league, he was starting to come into his own. He was a great floor general, decent outside shooter, and above defender. Rip Hamilton was the starting shooting guard. He was the primary scorer of the team and got most of his points running off of ball screens. Tayshaun Prince was penciled in as the starting small forward. He had just finished his rookie season and had all the makings of a defensive stopper with a decent offensive game. Then they also had Ben Wallace, the starting power forward and center. The only part of that core that couldn't be considered young was Wallace. The best chance the Pistons had for long-term success was finding Wallace's long-term replacement. In addition to needing Wallace's long-term replacement, the bench was thin on quality big men. Drafting a quality big man was a logical move in this draft. Going into the 2003 NBA draft, 2 players were seen as locks to make multiple All-Star teams, LeBron James and, as we all know, Carmelo Anthony. LeBron and Carmelo were 2 such players from the 2003 NBA draft. Asking either one to come off the bench would not only have been a dumb move from a talent perspective, but it would have also caused major chemistry issues and create unrest among the fan base as well. LeBron was a chosen one and a franchise saver who improved the Cavaliers from the moment he stepped foot on the court. Carmelo had just led Syracuse to a national championship as a true freshman. He had too much promise to had come off the bench. The Pistons had to ask themselves the questions outlined above. These answers followed. They needed the most help in the post, so either a power forward or center should be targeted. The best available player was Carmelo. The drop-off was decent from Carmelo to Chris Bosh, but the next closest sure thing, however, some scouts, including Chad Ford, thought Darko was the second best player in the draft. Not only did the Pistons think that, but mostly all the teams, thought that in the draft. His combination of size, youth, and skills tested off charts. He was not the sure thing, but he was a potential home run pick if he panned out. Darko didn't have major red flags in terms of character concerns. Carmelo posed one huge red flag. Carmelo would have had to start right away or the chemistry would have been destroyed. In terms of trade offers, only the Pistons know for sure. This is the biggest area I am potentially giving them hell for. They knew the Denver Nuggets wanted Carmelo. If they were dead set on Darko, they should have just flipped the picks with the Nuggets and picked up something in return. Even if they had netted only the Nuggets' second round pick in exchange, current NBA players Mo Williams, James Jones, and Kyle Korver were still on the board. Taking all of those factors into consideration, the Pistons made the right decision in not picking Carmelo. But they bogged it down by picking Darko Milicic at the second pick when they had so many more options. They were a team built on chemistry and defense. If Carmelo had been told he was coming off the bench, he would have had sabotaged the team's chemistry. If Prince had been regulated to the bench, the team defense would have taken a nosedive. That chemistry and team defense enabled them to win the championship in Darko and Carmelo's rookie years. The team they beat was the star-studded Los Angeles Lakers that featured Shaquille O'Neal, Kobe Bryant, Karl Malone, and Gary Payton. Chemistry as such is very underrated aspect of the game. I don't think the Pistons would have won the title that year if they would have drafted Carmelo Anthony for that very reason. In fact, I'll argue they never would have won a title with Carmelo. It really isn't that outrageous of a claim, but Carmelo has never even taken a team to the NBA Finals, let alone won a championship. Also, the Pistons would have lost their defensive identity and would not have been as dangerous of a team. Every Pistons fan should ask themselves this: if you could draft Darko and get a championship because of it, or you could draft Carmelo and roll the dice that you may have not won that championship, which option would you pick? Personally, I would take the sure thing. I don't think Carmelo would have won the Pistons a title during those next few seasons. I am in no way, shape, or form suggesting Darko ended up as a better player than Carmelo. My point is that I would rather have the guaranteed ring than roll the dice. Hopefully from now on I have opened up some eyes and have not just kicked a hornet's nest, knowing the fact that Carmelo could have ruined the chances the Pistons had at winning a championship, and seeing how everything transpired, looking at how the Pistons thought of the draft and how every team looked at the draft, knowing that the Pistons need a power forward or center going into this draft, seems that they weren't really after anyone like Carmelo or LeBron James or Dwayne Wade. Now, they could have went after Chris Bosh, but obviously that's for another video. They obviously could have went for him, but then again, who knows? At the end of the day, though, the Pistons did win championships without Carmelo, and they still drafted Darko, so let's not bash them too much, but the fact that they did choose Darko as the second pick is definitely still terrible. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys next time.